You knew we were looking for you, didn't you? Kind of figured it out.
I'd like to welcome everyone to this Henderson County Board of Education regular meeting. Today is May 15th, 2017. Thank you all for coming. We've got a lot of young faces out there. That's always great to see. If we could have a moment of silence and just remember all of the teachers who have served all of our students well over this past year, an extra moment of silence for prayer for them. Thank you very much. Mr. Brian Barber, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, sir? Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Brian. Moving on to the approval of the agenda. Has everyone had a chance to look at the agenda? And are there any changes? Hearing none, I'll look for a motion to approve the agenda as listed.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Mike. I'll second that. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to student and staff recognition. Ms. Marnette.
Thank you. Good evening. First on our recognition list is a student from Spotsville Elementary School. He is this month's Judges Scholar. His name is Aaron Brown. He could not attend tonight because his family's attending the band banquet at the high school, and so he's there with his family and his other siblings. So I've already given the recognition to Miss Estabrook, who was here to represent Spotsville along with him. And so we'll move right along then to Cairo Elementary School. Cairo Elementary School has recently found out that they have obtained Lighthouse status. So members of the board were pretty excited to present to you the third school, elementary school, who uses the Leader in Me program very faithfully through Fidelity and have received Lighthouse status. So at this time, I'd like to ask any staff members, principals, Mr. Brian Gardner and Ms. Brooke Chappelle to come up, and any Cairo staff to come up first, please. I know staff are going, I think it's about the kids. Come on up here. It is about the kids, but without a fantastic staff, yeah, let's give them a round of applause. Staff, teachers and support staff, and fantastic leadership, Lighthouse status would not be achievable. And so I'm going to turn the mic first over to Ms. Brooke Chappelle and tell us a little bit about who's with you today and whatever else you want to.
Thank you, Ms. Stanley. Thank you all for allowing us to be here today. We have part of our fantastic staff with us today. Of course, Mr. Gardner, Taryn O'Loughlin, who teaches 4th grade, Jenny Pierce, who teaches 1st grade, and she is also the leader of our student Lighthouse team. In a moment, they're going to come up and do a presentation, and she has worked tirelessly with them this year on many different projects, so we thank her for that leadership role. Miss Angie Blair, who teaches 4th grade, Miss Evelyn Cummings, 3rd grade teacher, Miss Stacy Risley, our guidance counselor, Missy Ellis, our secretary, Maggie Whitledge, a 1st grade teacher, and Felicia Holloman, 1st grade teacher, and she is the facilitator of our staff Lighthouse team, so she has a major leadership role there as well. Like Ms. Stanley said, we earned the status of being a Lighthouse school, which means we have met the milestone of kind of full implementation of the Leader in Me process. However, since it's just a milestone, that means we still have growth that we will continue to strive toward, and also it's important for us to continue to be a beacon of light for others who are going through the Leader in Me process as well. So with that, we're going to turn it over to Miss Pierce and our student Lighthouse team. If you all will come up.
Student Lighthouse team. What's the name here?
Good evening, I'm Ms. Pierce, and my Lighthouse students and I were tasked with the challenge of finding out what does it mean, to a student to be a Lighthouse school. So they and I, we worked together, and we've written a few words about that, and also I have a very short video to show you about that, so I'll show it first, and then I'll let them take it over.
Change my classroom. I have a voice and now I use my voice to change my school. I have a voice and I will use my voice to change my community. I have a voice and I will use my voice to change my state. I have a voice and I will use my voice to change my country. I have a voice and I will use my voice to change my world. You have a voice to change.
To the students now.
Being a Lighthouse School is an amazing honor for the students, staff, and families of Cairo. It means a lot of hard work and time put in by everyone to make it happen. It means showing the way for others as we grow into leaders. It
It means mastering the me habits as well as the we habits.
It means it is being an inspiration for those around us.
In the words of our principal, Brooke Chappelle, Leader in Me is a journey, not a destination.
It also means taking what we have learned into the future, not only in school, at home, in jobs, and with our friends. Being a Lighthouse or a Leader in Me school means carrying the 8 habits with us wherever we go. It is truly a part of who we are.
Students, because you are outstanding leaders at Cairo Elementary School, we have a special medal tonight that we're going to give you. And as Ms. Williams is giving you a medal, I want to come back through and have you introduce yourself. All right? And you are?
My name's Elizabeth Carter. My name's Madeline Bennett.
My name is Ryan Holland.
My name is Jad Dalton.
My name is Chloe Wilson. Camden Dill. Ziegler.
Maya Blanford. Maya Blanford. Now, if you happen to be in the audience and one of these belong to you, would you please stand? Parents, sisters, brothers, grandparents, you should be very proud of the leaders that you have. Thank you so much for taking time tonight to come up and spotlight, allowing your child, the person that you're with, to spotlight Cairo Elementary School. Very proud of these students. And then as soon as everybody gets a medal, we're going to do a quick picture. All right. Staff, do you all want to come in and get behind them for a quick picture, please? How long have you all been working to get Lighthouse status? Like 2, 3 months?
5 years.
5 years. It's a process. It's a journey.
It's a team effort, for sure.
Absolutely. Thank you. Students, we're very proud of you. Congratulations. All right. I also asked Mr. Gardner if he would just share some words of wisdom with us tonight. Mr. Gardner previously was principal at A.B. Chandler Elementary School. He started this Leader in Me initiative in the elementary schools in the Henderson County schools. And A.B. Chandler was the first school in our district to receive Lighthouse status. Then he went on and became a coach in Franklin Covey for a few years, worked across the state at many, many schools, coaching them to implement Leader in Me with fidelity, and showed and led other schools how to become a status like now Jefferson Elementary, as you saw a month ago, and now Cairo as well. So I'm just going to turn the mic over to you, Mr. Gardner, and let you share what you'd like.
My vision for the Leader in Me was to communicate worth and potential to students. And overall, big picture, I wanted to see kids take it from the elementary school to the middle school and on to the high school, and empower them to be leaders of themselves and leaders of our community. So, I think if we can communicate worth and potential, if we can do that well for our kids, then we're going to see a lot of great things happening in our school system. Thank you.
You are definitely a leader in excellence in our school system, Mr. Gardner. Next, I would like to recognize a very special person. This person recently received a $1,500 scholarship. She is a senior at Henderson County High School. Can I go ahead and have Kelsey Hurst come forward, please? Kelsey's had many barriers in her life, but she determined along her way that she was going to forge forward and she'll be a graduate Friday night, get to hand you a diploma. I think you're going on to Lindsay Wilson, am I correct? Tell us a little bit about what you want to do after high school.
After high school, I want to go to Lindsay Wilson College for 4 years. I'm going to major in human services and Christian ministries, and hopefully become a pastor or a counselor.
Congratulations on your scholarship. And I think you also have a couple of folks that are maybe with you tonight. Would you like to introduce them?
My youth leaders are here with me tonight. Chris and Kurt Wiesen.
Please stand and be recognized as well.
Thank you for the relationship and the impression that you've had upon this young lady. Thank you so much and congratulations. Best wishes. Thank
Miss
you.
Marnetta, if you read the back of her shirt, it would give you an indication of how she's read her life.
Strong and courageous. Awesome. Can we do a picture together? Sure. We also have on the agenda to recognize the North Middle School Band, but again, they were not able to make it tonight. They also have several siblings attending the band banquet at the high school, and so we just weren't able to coordinate that. Last, we would like to recognize our Governor's Scholars tonight, and we have several of those folks in the audience. And so if these students would come forward, if Zachary would come forward, Catherine, Bryce, Aaron, Cole, Clark, Isabella. And I see Miss Seitz in the audience. As these folks come forward, Miss Seitz, come up and talk to us a little bit about Governor's Scholar. What do the kids have to do to, I know. Put her on the spot.
Totally put me on the spot. Actually, the counselor in my unit is in charge of this, so I've watched her take care of this through the years, and I had a son go through this. So I know what these students have to do in order to be chosen. They are amazing representatives from across the state. They have a really, really detailed application that they have to complete. They have to have community recommendations, have to have recommendations from teachers and counselors in their school. They have to, it is the application is insane. They have to spend countless hours documenting everything they have been involved in high school, both in the building, outside the building, any community involvement they've had. What else, guys? Oh my gosh, yeah, awards. The essay is the major part, and that's the most fun thing, that when we're scoring those, and I didn't score them this year. Anytime I have a child involved, I step back. And leave it to everybody else. But the essays that these kids come up with are fabulous. And let's see, I'm trying to think. There were a couple that stood out this year. One had to do with baseball. One year had to do with being a pair of blue jeans. One of them this year that stood out, and I remember whose it was, but she's not here, and I don't remember exactly what it was, but if she were here, I would have her talk about it. But it was so creative. So these kids really, really represent the best of the best in the state of Kentucky. They chose, I believe, 1,000 students from across the state of Kentucky, but there were about 4,000 applications turned in, and once we score them at the high school level, and we have people from the board office come and score, we have community people come and score, we have people in our building come and score, and of course the names are not associated, so they score them and we rank them from our school, and we can usually send up to 16, and we send those then on to Frankfurt, where people from across the state read those and choose. And so these applications were due January, and you didn't find out until April. Is that right? Yeah. So, you know, you're on pins and needles. And our high school this year, we had 7 chosen and 3 alternates. And usually the alternates are chosen, they eventually get to go too. So that is the biggest number we have sent in all the years that I can remember. And I've been back at the high school probably 11 years now. So this is a really impressive group of kiddos in front of you tonight. And I'm sorry the others couldn't be here.
Thank you. You did fantastic. We're gonna, in honor of your leadership and the award that you received as Governor's Scholars, we'd like to also give you a Medal of Excellence tonight. And as Ms. Williams is putting on, I'm also gonna have them, I called out everyone's name, and we're missing 3 tonight. So specifically, who do we have with us tonight?
Clark Sides, Katie Vickers,
Cole Privet.
and Aaron Onan.
And Aaron Onan. Do any of you all have any parents, friends, grandparents with you tonight? Yes. Would you have them stand and be recognized as well? Please stand. Congratulations to you all. It is a hard, it is a strong applicant pool. Obviously, it's the best of the best, and for these 4 to be named a Governor's Scholar and to have 7 total at the high school speaks a lot for the high school as well. Let's do a quick picture. Let's give these awesome leaders a round of applause. Madam Chair, that ends our student and staff recognition time.
Thank you very much. Moving on to public participation and recognition of guests. If there's anyone who wishes to speak to the board this evening, please fill out a form and bring it up to me. We'll be happy to listen to you. Also, some of our Governor's Scholars, we have some student ambassadors here visiting us this evening. Riley Kirkhoff, y'all please stand. Thank you. Aaron Onan, Katie Vickers, Cole Privet, and Clark Sites. Thank you all. Next on our agenda is approving the minutes from the prior meeting. Has everyone had a chance to review those minutes? Are there any changes or discussion? Hearing none, I look for a motion to approve the meeting minutes from April 17th, a regular meeting and a regular expulsion hearing. Thank you, Dr. Sugg. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr. Boyd. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried, minutes approved. Moving on to committee reports. Any committee reports? I don't believe so. We've got some embedded in our report section, I do know that. So moving on to the report section, Spotsville Elementary School construction. Mr. John Hagan-Codell.
Okay, we are here tonight to award the last few bid packages for the Spotsville School. We took bids May the 9th for the windows, kitchen equipment, and elevator packages. Real quick, that's one of the contractors brought out a drone and took some aerial photos, so that kind of gives you an idea of how tight the site is. That's the biggest obstacle we're facing right now. There is nowhere to lay down any material, as we heard in our meeting today. But construction's going fairly well. Masonry's underway. The slab on grade's progressing. Looks like we're going to get a pretty good week of weather this week, so hopefully we'll make a real good showing. But like I said, the last few pieces of the puzzle, those 3 bid packages, as well as the proposals we received for the testing and balancing of the HVAC system. We received 2 bids for each package, with the exception of the elevator. We received 1 that got delivered on time. There was a second that came in late, but it wasn't a low bid anyway. So the low bid on the bid package 7, the windows, it's Kentucky Mirror and Plate Glass, $339,359. kitchen equipment is Great Lakes West, $366,055, and DC Elevator, or the elevator package, $55,350, and then thermal balance, $14,200, which is a total $774,964. That sounds like a huge dollar figure, and it is. However, that is right about $168,000 below the estimated cost we had for your bond sale. So that's a big chunk of dollars to go right into contingency fund, so that's great. But we would like to make those recommendations for approval.
Any questions, ladies and gentlemen of the board?
I'll make a motion to accept the recommendation and the bids as presented, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Moak. I'll second that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Scroll down, next.
Next month, another good piece of information, we'll be coming to you with a change order, credit change order, roughly $78,000 for a value engineering change on the roof. You remember, back on bid day, we talked about making some changes to the roof. It's taken a while to get all that together, but it's about $78,000. So we combine 168 and 75, that's about $250,000 going into contingency fund. So we'll be back next month with that change. But moving on, you do have a stack of change orders. This is one change order to each contract, each prime contractor. As you can see, they're $0. These are just simply time extensions for the adverse weather days lost since the beginning of the project through the April month of next year, excuse me.
Any questions about those change orders? Pretty much date changes from later. Hearing none, I'll look for a motion to approve the change orders as listed. Thank you, Ms. Tracy. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. So. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Change orders approved. We'll look forward to seeing you next month.
Good, thank you.
Madam Chair, may I make a quick comment?
Sure.
I want to say in front of John Hagan. I just want to share with members of the board that on site, our person on site that Codell provides, his name is Mike Alberson, and he's a different person than what we had when we had our CTE renovation. So, we've had to build new relationships, but he is outstanding. He conducts the meetings in a very professional manner with all of, I'm going to call them subcontractors as they come around the table at their monthly meetings. He keeps Donnie and Billy, when he's able to attend, very informed on what is going on. Usually about every other week, I go out to the site. Usually Mr. Snyder and I go out just to look, see what's going on. Sometimes he's in the trailer, but most of the time he is out there among the men, making sure things are happening correctly. And he's very easy to talk to. He talks in layman's terms, answer any questions that you have. And so I've not really had a chance to tell you that, Mike, but I wanted to tell the board that out on the job site, things go very well, and Mike Alberson is top-notch at running our job site. We appreciate you providing that person, and I hope we get to keep him through the whole project.
Absolutely.
Good, thank you.
Thank y'all.
Thank you. Moving on to child nutrition. Ms. Charlotte?
Good evening. I put some information in here for you tonight from Child Nutrition. There might have been some questions regarding the newest data that's been released on our guidelines for next year that we're facing. Some people have been saying, the restrictions have been lifted for food service or child nutrition. And I just want to kind of clarify that. We haven't really had any restrictions lifted right now. What we don't have to do is cut sodium another 10%. Thank you. That's a blessing. We can continue to try. We serve whole grain. A lot of districts do a waiver. We have not done that. So while they're extending your ability to do a waiver for whole grain, that is not something that we have done and we do not intend to. And the other part that they released on the milk is I'm waiting for an official notice that says we can order 1% flavored. It's been recommended to the USDA that that be put forward instead of forcing us to have low-fat flavored milk to allow us to serve 1%. And I'll say, as I always do, if it was up to me, we'd be giving them whole milk. But they don't let me make that decision, so we'll stick with the low-fat 1%. On to the good news I know everybody wants to hear. We just finished back in April our April 1 data that we present to state. And again, this data that qualifies us for the CEP Community Eligibility Program to provide free meals to the schools is based on all of our direct certification for the district. Now, that's not our kids that are included who qualify for free or reduced off of application process. This is strictly direct certification. And with this year's numbers, the schools we have in place will continue, and we will add Spotsville Elementary. Big old round of applause, okay, to our completely free meals. So I just want to make sure that that is covered tonight. Any questions? Come at me. I'm ready.
We've said in the past we're never going to be able to add high school to this list, correct?
Yeah, I had numbers and percentages ready for you. Trying to run those numbers where they meet and we still get, to take less than 100% payment affects the budget so much. And we've been working so hard to get our budget back in alignment where it needs to be.
That's totally fine.
I honestly don't ever see the middle schools and high schools getting there. I'm just thrilled to death to be able to put all the elementaries and the preschool and central on there.
Exactly, more kids better. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Any questions for Ms. Charlotte while she's here? Thank you. Moving on to mental health, Ms. Morgana and Ms. Nancy.
Yes, we're tag teaming this tonight, and I'm giving you a little bit of background just to bring everybody up to where we are today. We have heard throughout this past year at our council meetings. We heard it when I went to staff meetings in the fall and visited with every staff member that they're struggling with the increase of students that have mental health issues, mental health diagnosis, concerns, thus behaviors are somewhat more of a struggle for us. We also know in the past few years, because of where our budget is, we have had to look at the amount of resources that we can provide in schools, and so we're strategically trying to balance that. When I went to each staff and asked 3 questions, I asked them what were they the most proud of to work, or why were they the most proud to work in Henderson County schools? They gave answers. What were their largest challenges? And give me suggestions. And so a lot of the challenges and suggestions, again, revolved around this topic. Bonnie Galke has spent quite a bit of research this fall and into the spring, along with Jamie Light, looking at best practice models for mental health, providing services, resources, ongoing lesson plans with mental health. And I think I sent to you all in a weekly update a little video clip if you had time to watch. And we're usually really using that video clip as a springboard, and you'll hear some of our staff starting to talk about kids that keep the bear with them all the time. You know, we go into a woods and we see the bear and we get that flight or fight syndrome kind of thing, and then we get home and we talk about it because we're still wound up, and the next day it leaves us over a period of time. But kids that live in environments that are very challenging, that bear stays with them all the time. So we started to have conversations. Again, Ms. Galke took the lead, and it was like, okay, so what do we have? We're not just going to add people. We're just not going to throw curriculum at the situation. We're not just going to try to patch. How can we develop a systematic, strategic plan to look at all of our kids across the district? So first we had to do a needs assessment. We looked at what we have. What do we have in place? What do we need? Where are gaps? And what works well? We looked at building capacity. What we have in place is, and Ms.
Gibson's going to get in a little more detail, but we felt like our focus was to build capacity among every staff member. Teaching is very different than it was 5 years ago. Our clientele is different. It really doesn't matter what the barriers are for kids. We have to break them down. That's the bottom line. So all of our staff are trained in positive behavior intervention supports. That's foundational. We have a behavior response team. We are working on trauma-informed care and looking forward at gaps that we know we still need to look at. We have a very outdated guidance curriculum in the elementary schools. Nancy Satterfield has written a grant, and if we are successful, they will purchase all new second step curriculum, which is a character building type of curriculum. But we're also looking at the mindfulness, coping skills, things like that to make sure that we're teaching kids. So we have opportunity there that hopefully won't cost us anything. That's my point is hopefully working through our guidance, our existing people in the elementary with guidance, that will be a piece we can put into place. We're going to do ongoing TIC training, which is the trauma-informed care, and we will speak in our budget, when we get to our budget conversation, our gap of resources, meaning people, hands in the trenches, nobody to oversee the program. We do all of that at the district level, but actually hands in classrooms or at the school level to help assist with that as well. So you'll see that kind of in the second piece coming forward. So at that point, that's a little bit of background of how we've gotten to the presentation, Ms. Gibson. We've spent several months on it. We looked at best practices. We did a needs assessment, and now we're trying to line up not just a patch, but a strategic plan. So Ms. Gibson, take it away.
I'm just going to follow up on a few other things to mention that in that framework, in the all category, another thing that we've been very mindful of is the youth mental health first aid training through the Safe Schools and the grant that Mrs. Satterfield was able to get for us and Mr. Steiner was able to implement, where they trained over 250 staff members and community members on being able to identify youth that had a mental health risk. Mentioned also about the PBIS, the positive behavior supports. When many of our elementary 7 to be exact adopted the Leader in Me character building program, Jamie Light and Bonnie and their committee, they brought in Mike Wofford, they brought him in again with positive behavior systems, and he meshed the Leader in Me, the character building with the social and emotional of the PBS. He meshed those together to help the schools understand that you really needed those working hand in hand to be successful. Just a few things, if you'll recall, our youth service centers and our family resource centers have been instrumental in providing some of the programs like Challenge Day and follow-ups from Challenge Day. Mrs. Swanson, she brought in Dr. Malcolm Smith, Courage to Care program, guidance and youth service centers have also provided Victory Over Violence, and through all of that, we have revitalized our collaborative partners group through the work of Jamie Light and brought over 70 members back together for 2 different meetings to kind of refresh everyone on who our community partners are and what services they're able to provide, and that's been truly helpful. Through those programs, especially the positive behavior system, it provides a monitoring tool that is able to drill down and monitor and identify groups of students that may need some early intervention. And so that's when we usually introduce programs like Check and Connect to build those relationships and kind of see the periods of time in a day where a child may have a trigger, or they may just, it may get around lunchtime when they get a little too fidgety or appetite, or it may be every 20 minutes when it's just too much for them to handle in the classroom. So through Check and Connect and through TIC, the Trauma Enforced Care, I don't think we mentioned that we'll be doing an extensive training with the Trauma Enforced Care. We have the trainer, and then we'll do 6 hours of PD for all the schools. Did you mention that? I apologize, I couldn't remember. But they'll do a 6-hour training of PD in August when our teachers go back to school and our staff go back to school. And in that program, they also have the ACE screener, which determines adverse childhood experiences for students, so that we can better identify our kids that need some services and work with our collaborative partners, Green River Health, River Valley, Health First, Lighthouse, just to name a few, and DJJ, to hook up some extra services and support for our students and their families. And then from there, you'll focus on the top part of the framework, and that's where we get really intensive. That's where the behavior response team and the TIC teams develop intensive individual plans that kind of do wraparound services that are specialized for the student and for the family, and also to provide counseling. So those, just to kind of sum it up, all is what we do for all of our students all of the time, and some of it we need to do better. And for instance, Ms. Stanley mentioned that second step. We know that has been a research-based best practice go-to for 20 some odd years, and we need to pull it back out, and it's good stuff, and we need to help our counselors and our guidance counselors to be able to present that. And then the sum, I think that we pretty well covered. That's just for a few of our kids in small groups, and then our intensive needs are, of course, our few that we continue to need some support with.
We're working on our needs assessment. We felt like the sum category, that middle part of the triangle, is probably where our gaps are. And we have a lot of the all already in place, and we can work on strengthening our gaps in all fairly easy. But the sum is the place where a few more hands will be requested when we get to the budget. And when you hit the few category, most of those students already will be identified special needs or have an IEP, which gives them a stronger support already. So through our needs assessment and looking at a plan for moving forward, we involved our principals in this process and asked them also, here's what we're seeing, how would you best suggest to request to the board the use of some funding to get some people as well. So when you see that request in the budget, it pretty much falls into that sum category. And we'll be glad to answer any questions you all may have at this time.
Is the addition to getting better in the subcategory to keep those students from progressing into the few, or is that just a different section of kids that are always going to be in that subcategory that we have to work and help with? When you talked about the special ed kids, and the kids with IEPs have already been identified in the few, so the sub kids are not moving up, they're just that
It could be
base
both.
getting bigger.
It could be both.
Okay.
The kids could maybe go forward, but our goal is always prevention. We want to make sure that our interventions or our programs are strong enough that we prevent kids from climbing up that pyramid, if you say. So yes, but even after we've worked with the some category for a while, may they end up in few, a few may end up in the few. But we hope the majority will stay there, and we'll have a strong way of teaching them better coping skills, better mindfulness, and how to, calm themselves, more like that self-advocacy type strategy.
And how many community partners did you say signed up to do our training? Or you had a training session?
Well, when we have our collaborative partners meeting, we've had an attendance over 70. That includes community and school staff members, guidance counselors, family resource folks, and then, of course, all of your community partners, counselors, social workers.
And some folks that just volunteer.
And some folks that just volunteer.
Do we have, I'm just curious, do we have pediatricians that work with us on this?
One of the greatest resources that we've had is Sharon Shields. And I think that a lot of mothers in this community can say that, but their office, and especially Sharon, she is available anytime that we have a concern, and then if she can't advise us, then she can certainly get us to the next person.
Dr. Farmer has come along, and Dr. Lyles
I felt like they had, but I just wanted to reiterate that.
Any other questions or comments from the other board members? Dr. Sutton?
Yeah, I'll just add one comment. We were talking about our reading program a while ago in our earlier meeting, and I don't want us to lose sight of the all. I think our Lighthouse teams, that's a really good example of how everybody has taken a hold of this and is implementing it with fidelity. And I think what's happened with PBIS over the years, and I'm one of those that have been around a little while, Brenda Phillips was the first principal that actually started down that path at Jefferson and made a huge difference. So because it's been around a while, people think they know it. And we've had so many new staff, turnover, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a rule, a 90-90 rule. Unless 90% of the people are doing this 90% of the time, you can't say you're fully implementing. And I think sometimes, especially with PBIS, it's been around for a while, and we just say, yes, we've got our guidelines on the wall and so on. So I really would like for us to make an effort in our buildings for administrators to make sure all teachers, all staff members are, at least 90% of them, are using those principles 90% of the time.
Ms. Margetti, we heard Mr. Gardner say that moving Leader and Me forward through the middle schools and through the high schools would always be the next progressive step, especially since we have so many Leader and Me schools and Lighthouse schools. Are the kids that we are hoping to serve, hoping to help in these categories for elementary, middle school, high schools, and across the board? Across the board. I was trying to figure out if moving that Leader and Me program forward into those other grades could help solve part of this issue, but that would be a plus, but it's not going to be a big piece of this. Okay, cool. Thank you all. We appreciate that, and we appreciate the principals and everybody getting involved in that. That was a big part of our discussion during councils, and that was only in November. And you all have done a yeoman's job of moving this forward and getting our teachers and our principals help from November until May. So I will compliment the whole staff for working on that. And Ms. Galkey, yes.
She drove that bus.
She drove that bus? She drives lots of buses. Thank you, ma'am. Moving on to Senate Bill 1 update. Ms. Margetta?
Sure. This will be a little brief, but I know that, and because I know you saw the commissioner's PowerPoint presentation, and I just wanted to share with you how I feel that Senate Bill 1 immediately affects us and going forward. So it's a little bit of a summary. So if you'll just hold that screen right there for just a minute, Robin, I'll have you click as we go. Remember, Senate Bill 1 was deemed an emergency bill, and that means that as soon as the governor signs it, it becomes law. So when he signed it, program review left. We decided in the Henderson County Schools that we would stop our program review. It's so close to the end of the year as it is. I asked Ms. White to do a desk audit, so all of our program review folks who have been collecting artifacts throughout the year will still receive feedback from us, but we won't have to submit that to the State Department. That is a piece of work that consumes a considerable amount of time. So that's a positive. On the flip side, though, it also counts as 23% of our accountability score. So with program review being gone, that no longer, even though we just finished almost all of our testing on Friday, and we have some makeups, I'm sure, today, our spring K-Prep testing, when we receive our scores back in the fall, program review will not be factored into that either. So therefore, that will change when we get scores reported. Comparing from year to year, the commissioner, shared with us that percentiles, labels, percentages will not come to us in the fall. What we've talked about internally, making sure we do, is we definitely know we can compare reading to reading and math to math, because through the years, those are the two that have been constant. We did do pilot testing for science this year, which will become a part of our accountability going forward. Another thing that significantly impacted us when the governor signed Senate Bill 1 was our PGIS, our Professional Growth and Effectiveness System. At that point, technically, it wasn't law anymore. Again, here in Henderson, it has been board approved, so we chose to finish our year, which is the right thing to do, finish our year using that system. And Ginger Carter in our HR department has already convened the 50-50 committee. The 50-50 committee is made up of 50% administrators and 50% of teachers, and they develop the evaluation system. So she's already met with them. We meet again next week, and in June we will bring back to you any changes that we would like to recommend in our certified evaluation system. And I expect that we will definitely have some changes. The framework that we have used, the Danielson framework, is spot on. It is spot on. I won't even argue that. And it's very good in theory of how to coach teachers to become better teachers. No doubt about it. And I feel like we'll keep part of the rubric or part of her work. But the pieces that were put in together were so time-consuming for principals that it really took away some of the effectiveness. So we want to find a really good, solid hybrid model to alleviate some of that paperwork and time, to where the principals can spend more time coaching and using her rubric to move the effectiveness upward. That's our plan. But those two things really immediately impacted us when program review was taken away, and then when then deciding what to do with Peaches. Okay, so going forward, Robin, if you'll click to the next screen, you'll see that going forward, we will use an accountability system. Now, next year, 17-18, is a baseline year. Okay, so we know that it is what it is, baseline year. But we will look in 5 different categories. We will eventually report out our proficiency, which we do now, achievement gap, which we do now, transition readiness is new, opportunity and access will be new to us, and growth will be added at the elementary and middle. Now, we're accustomed to growth. That's recently been implemented. And then there's a bullet underneath there that says reported measures for accountability, but not included in the overall school rating. And going forward,
I need to be very involved in Kentucky Board of Education meetings to see how that will become particularly defined. Because right now they're just bullets and words, and until somebody interprets them, we don't know exactly what that will look like. But it's to ensure that there's transparency and to provide a context for school performance, coherence between various measures, and the next screen talks to that, and then useful feedback. So Robin, if you would go to the next screen. In the language, the new Senate Bill 1 language, it wants to show a relationship or a correlation between growth and proficiency. When you show a correlation between those two indicators, proficiency and growth, you really can't have a child become stagnant, if that's a good word, in their learning. Meaning we want all kids to get to proficiency, but if you're already at proficiency, then you have to show growth as well. So that is a model they're trying to correlate. And at the high school, they want to correlate proficiency and transition. And right now, my understanding is that obviously all kids, our goal is to get them to proficiency, but you can be at proficiency and graduate, and if you don't have a good transition, how proficient are you? So if you go to the next screen, these are a couple of grids that they're using. The one on the left speaks just to elementary and middle school, which is proficiency and growth. There's no growth at the high school. Proficiency and growth in elementary and middle. And wherever, let's just take Cairo Elementary, wherever Cairo Elementary's dot lands, where proficiency and growth comes together in that relationship piece, is where they would either be considered low achieving, strong, very strong, moderate. So you'll get a rating by putting those two pieces together. And the same philosophy works when you look at the one on the right-hand side that looks at proficiency and transition readiness at the high school level. If you go to the next slide, we know, and we heard at the town hall, that we no longer will have we're needs improvement, we're proficient school district or school, or distinguished. We now will have the opportunity to be outstanding, excellent, good, fair. We should never be concerned. We should never be fair. Concern or intervention. And again, all of those charts and graphs will be deemed through that correlation indicator process. That's all the information I wanted to give you tonight about Senate Bill 1 moving forward. There are 19 sections in Senate Bill 1. The accountability piece is just one of those sections. So we will, Kim White is our district accountability person. She's our DAC. She will definitely attend this state meetings. We will attend state meetings and possibly even go up for the June Kentucky Board of Education meeting when the Kentucky Department shares this with their board to see how they present it to define even some more of these terms. Actually, there is one more slide, I think, Robin, I'm sorry. And that we saw at the town hall also, that is probably the end of how we will get publicly reported a true dashboard, looking at all those 5 different areas with an overall rating. Does anybody have any questions? I don't know if I have answers yet, but just wanted you to know that we are we're trying to stay abreast of it and ask lots of questions at our superintendent meetings and state meetings, and we try to keep you as informed as we can.
Ms. Mariana, how, you have never answered this, maybe. When we're moving from last year's set of ratings, scores, and even the years before when we had charts that went up and we could follow kids from kindergarten all the way through high school as to how they were proceeding with that. How do you all, is there going to be a way to mesh those things together with this new dashboard? To see whether we're making progress? I mean, I
Yes,
can
it's a
see where we're
great
at right now, but
question.
to try to figure out,
It depends on how they send data back to us, I guess. They'll send this to us for publicly reporting, but then we always in the past have received specific student reports as well. So, for next year, for this year when we get our results back and the next year, I feel like we can still compare reading to reading and math to math, and we should get specific student data back to look at that. The following year, I just got an email today that was a press release, and it gave us the timeline, because Senate Bill 1 also speaks to standards, and it gave us the timeline of how the Department of Education wants to move forward from Common Core to Kentucky standards. And so in 1819, ELA standards will have been revamped. So at that point, you're going to be creating a test that's going to possibly test a different group of standards, or revised. We're not going to completely throw out Common Core. They'll just kind of cull, I think, that's my understanding, from the Common Core standards. Common Core is not this great big document. It's just a little document of standards kind of thing. And so they want to make those more Kentuckyized, and so they're going to use the process of including educators, community folks to revise that.
because Common Core was more U.S.
National.
national and not Kentucky, so we're almost going backwards what we were.
I don't think Kentucky will let it go backwards, because the rigor that Common Core brought to our kids was good for our kids. It was good. So I do not see the commissioner or the Kentucky Board of Education allowing us to go backwards by any means. But they might become more, I want to use the word specific.
Yeah, that's what I mean,
Yeah.
not backwards as in reverting.
Not in
It's
rigor.
Not in rigor, it's in, we're gonna pay more attention to how we match up and how we do stuff, not necessarily how we compare it on the high Texas or something else.
One other thing that we're watching very closely is, we currently give ACT to all juniors. In Senate Bill 1, there's a section that talks about that, and they will have to bid it out. We asked the commissioner that, we were able to talk to him kind of in private in the kitchen. We were like, okay, so is it gonna be ACT or SAT? What's it gonna be? And he said, I can't tell you that. We have to bid that back out. The bid is coming up for ACT. And there's a guideline in there that says that whoever the bid is awarded to has to provide to our students across the Commonwealth free online tutoring. And so ACT doesn't have that, SAT doesn't have that right now. Those are pretty much your two big vendors. And so he really doesn't know. There's nothing that the department can do to weigh one way or the other. It's a total bid package.
So, where you take the test at?
The year round. You have access, free of charge, to high school students. So we're watching that, because we're pretty ACT focused here, and that would be a shift for us. We're okay if it's SAT. We just want to know so we can shift.
Questions, anybody else? Okay, we're gonna give Ms. Morgana a chance to catch your breath. Ms.
I've got a
Gingerbread?
comment,
Oh,
just
excuse
a
me.
comment, not a question, but, I know this is so complicated, and in my career, this is probably at least the 5th or 6th iteration of testing. So, having said that, the thing that I feel like our community needs to know and be reassured of is that we are doing the right things and best practices in instruction. And regardless of what the test looks like or which test it is, as long as you continue to do that, your kids are going to score. And the Governor's Scholar students up here are a good example of that. Our SOFA project in the fine arts, whether we have a program review or we don't have a program review, we're going to do the best things for kids. and that is to offer them those opportunities. So I know that the administrators and principals, they need to be very, very aware of all of this, and I know that Kim will do a really good job of that. But at the core is the student, the teacher, and the curriculum. And what happens in that classroom on a daily basis is really going well here in Henderson County. So I just don't want our community to think because the testing is changing, now we're going to change everything we do, because we're doing the right things.
Dr. Snyder, I also agree that the Senate Bill 1 did for us by taking away some of the PGES requirements and the paperwork is it gives our principals a chance to be a principal and our teachers a chance to be a teacher. Takes away the paperwork, makes it more student focused.
In that, again, the Danielson framework is wonderful, but it's the conversation that's important, not the paperwork and not the technology, which is where everybody got bogged down. So we're going to keep doing right things here.
Totally. Salary schedule, Ms. Ginger? Excuse me, back up, tentative budget. Did I get ahead of myself? Sometimes, Ms. Cindy, I would like to get a budget, yes, there's like years.
I second that. Oh, wait.
I already approved the agenda, so we gotta have it.
Okay, the budget you have in your packet is the tentative budget. It is required to be board approved prior to May 30th each year. This budget is pretty much exactly what you saw in January at the draft budget, with just a few changes I'll explain in just a second. The assumptions page, planning assumptions are exactly the same as they were in January, and our contingency is at 5.48%, which is better than required by KDE, the 2%. On the second page, the tentative budget plan, this is where it is going to tell you about the additions to the budget that Ms. Stanley spoke about earlier. These are the only changes that were made to this budget. These include several additions to the general fund for people. Almost all of these fall into the categories she spoke about, special education and mental health, areas where we're seeing a great deal of need. And there's also a position for the compliance officer to oversee the new drug testing policy, as well as the anticipated cost for drug testing for student staff and fit for work testing. And there are a couple changes, minor changes to a couple extra service supplements, increasing the academic coordinator for the academic team at the high school, and adding an early college coordinator. And Ms. Carter will talk about that when she gets to the salary schedules. The good news on this page is that we found ways within the draft budget to offset these additions without changing the bottom line in the tentative budget. The unknown on the page is the line item that says instructional coaches. Our plan right now is to move that 28.5% that's currently funded in the general fund over to the special revenue fund, so that they are paid 100% through Title I and Title II. The unknown there is that if Title II gets cut, then we'll have to come back with another plan to figure that out. But you can see all the items listed, the positions, the number of positions, the number of days, and the anticipated cost of those positions, as well as at the bottom of the page, exactly how we plan to offset that cost. So the addition to the budget, as I said, is zero. Change.
Thank you.
That doesn't happen.
It probably won't happen again either.
You're such a breath of fresh air, thank you.
We went through every line item and took every dollar we could take to make that happen. It'll be difficult to make it happen next year, but we'll do it. The next page, the tentative budget fund summary, just shows you each fund and the anticipated amount in each fund. As you can see, the only change over to the far right, the only change is the addition of the special revenue fund, because that fund was not required to be reported in the draft budget in January. Where we fall out there, 92 million total of all funds. The next page below it, the general fund tentative budget, is just comparing the draft budget to the tentative budget. And that shows you.
Sorry,
Oh,
but
sorry.
back on the tentative budget, that second column,
Yes.
with adding in the special revenue, would that fall down to the general fund contingency or not?
No.
No? Okay.
The general fund contingency is just calculated on Fund 1 and Fund 51. The next page that shows comparison of the draft budget to the tentative budget shows you exactly what categories each of those changes were made in and where the money was coming from. Again, down at the bottom, we end up with the same. Flipping over to the two pie charts, they show a breakdown of our revenues and expenses. You can see we're heavily dependent on state funding for our revenues at 60% of our budget. Down on the expenses, our salaries and benefits are still a little bit higher than we would like for them to be, but part of this is due to the changes we just added to the increase in the Medicare match that's required for the benefits, and also for the requirement that the on-behalf payments are budgeted in the budget, and that's $14 million. If you flip over to the next pages, the next three sheets will show you our debt schedule of payments. The first one is for 17-18. We'll have debt payments of $2.2 million. The second sheet, the chart, will show you how our payments are going to fall out there through 2037. The third sheet will show you all of our bond issues that are outstanding and when they're going to be paid off. We think this is a good budget at this point. It's a balanced budget. We will need to try to get some buses into the next working budget along with our KETS match, which should happen when we know what discretionary funds we'll have at the end of the year. We'll plan for those two expenditures, and I will also plan to place some of that discretionary funds into contingency to pay for these positions that we added this year. Any questions?
Did you have that one page on there before where it shows the changes? I don't remember that, but that's a really good page.
I don't think I had it in the last one, but I like it.
I really like that.
Each category.
She usually has it every year when we finally get to this point. You may
I
not
just
have
don't think it was in the draft budget.
I don't think it was in the draft, but if we finally get farther down the road, you usually have that every year that shows the difference.
It was a helpful page to look at. And I just want to say, I know we're going back, you know, we've talked about our percentage of expenditures being staff, and we wanted to get that down a little bit. But I'm okay with what you have in here because it's targeted to the right things. And having those special ed teachers back in here that we had to cut a few years ago, all those positions, I've heard from a lot of teachers and administrators that was such a hard thing to deal with. So I really, you know, I know we want to continue, and Morgan, I know your goal is to get down in the 70s, and, you know, I know we want to do that, but I really feel like these are targeted to exactly the right thing.
It's tools that we've learned in, you know, sessions, best practices, but, you know, our kids, the needs that our kids have to speak a little bit louder.
And the needs our principals brought to us about mental health, that's something we can't ignore, even if we have to spend the money to do it. Okay, so Ms. Cindy, you need a action to approve this, is this correct?
Yes.
Okay. Look for a motion to approve the tentative budget as listed by Ms. Cindy Cloutier.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Boyd. Do I hear a second? Second. Thank you, Dr. Sugg. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Moving on to, no, we can move on to salary schedule. Thank you, Ms. Ginger.
Good evening. There are 16 pages with the 2017-18 salary schedule, but I'm only going to focus on 6 of the pages as they have changes. The first being page 5.
Whenever you look through this salary schedule for 17-18, you'll notice anything that is in bold italics is something that is going to be added this year. Very few bold italics. Anything that is in bold and struck through, has a strike through on the font, are things that we are deleting from our salary schedule. So starting on page 5, and this quote here mentioned some of these things. Academic coordinator at the high school, that is an addition, well, it's an addition to the supplement that was there. As well as early college coordinator. Those are the 2 additions, but you'll notice several things that have been struck. Child nutrition director, supplement, PGES district coordinator, program review in Arts, Humanities, Practical Living, World Language, the coordinator, the K-3, and the writing team leaders. All of those are tied to the Senate Bill 1 report that Ms. Stanley mentioned earlier in her report. These were stipends that had been, or supplements that had been added as a result of Senate Bill 1 2009. Senate Bill 1 2017 removes those. If you move to page 9, that's where you'll see our next change. And it has to do with our summer wages for our workers, getting them more in line. As we were hiring for this year's summer, we noticed that, so we made corrections for the 17-18 at the bottom of the page with summer workers, changing that hourly rate to $10.45, and then also adding a line item for summer technology workers, because that was not on there, we noticed for, as we were looking at this year's salary schedule. The next change is on page 10, and that is an addition for a substitute mechanic. We had a need for a substitute mechanic this year, but we did not have an hourly rate. So we wanted to add that for the 17-18 school year. Page 14 is where you'll find the next set of changes. And 14 and 15 kind of go together. On 15, you will see a strike through for school. Actually, you'll see a strike through on pay grade 24, food service operations coordinator, and you'll notice that that's moving from 24 down to a pay grade 22. So it is basically being moved down 2 pay grades, and on pay grade 25, school food service director is being struck through. Sorry, Charlotte. Surprise. And then on page 16 is our final changes. We noticed we added the LAN-WAN, I guess that's kind of how you would say it, the technology position that Mr. Bailey had presented to the board a few board meetings back. So this is the salary schedule that's tied to that, and it's tiered based on the person who will fill the position, whether they have what education level they're at, whether it be high school diploma, associate's, bachelor's, and then also director of child nutrition is on there. That was discussed whenever we added director of transportation last fall. You said to review it and add it to the 17-18 schedule rather than on the 16-17 schedule. So those are a brief summary of 16 pages of salary schedule. Questions you might have?
Ms. Ginger, I'm not sure if this is for you or for Mr. Steiner. I noticed that we have a change to our calendar days. Is that going to change any of this?
On the calendar?
Not if you'll adjust from 175 back to 176 back to 175, it won't adjust their classified contracts. One of the things that brought it to our attention was that as they started the work on contracts and getting those out, that's where our numbers align. So we'll get it back in order.
Okay, cool.
I just wanted to say congratulations. This is looking better and better every year. I think it's a lot more professional looking. I think the PIPE grant probably has helped, working on that. And it was one of my biggest concerns when I took office. because a lot of things were not on the salary schedule. And I think this is really clean, and I really congratulate you, Ms. Stanley, in putting all that together, because it's very, very clear.
Thank you. I want to give credit to Cindy Coulter. She's she creates it, and I just help along the way.
So these obviously have rank and step increases from last year, based on what we put in intended budget, but this does not have any kind of like a percentage increase from last year to this year that we'll see later on as a consideration.
It does not. I would love to,
But, thank you.
The only thing that changed was the year at the top.
Understand that. I'd like to see some information that might be, give us an indication on what would be anywhere from 1% to 3% increase. If just basic information, please.
If we talked about that at our last working meeting, I think that was something you'd like to pursue. Like I said, not this year, but we still need to start working on it. Anybody else, any questions for Ms. Ginger? Thank you, ma'am. Okay, so we need to approve the salary schedule. Look for a motion to approve the salary schedule as listed by Ms. Ginger. Thank you, Dr. Sub. Second. Get this to Tracy. Get the teachers in here. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you all. Back to Ms. Margana and Niagara Park.
This is a project that the fiscal court has actually initiated. And I felt like that it is in their conversation round far enough along that I should bring it to you all just to inform you, maybe give me some guidance. Okay, so fiscal court is looking for a place in the Niagara area to create a county park. And they put a survey out and asked different people in the Niagara community where they thought the park would benefit the community the most. Should it be down by the, down by the store? Should it be by our school? If you go a little farther down by Belfield, I think it's a Baptist church. They have a nice little park there now. Should they work with that as the addition? And they feel like at fiscal court that possibly the best place would be if they could do a collaborative effort with us and create a park. And so I asked Judge Schneider, well, what exactly does that look like for us? And he said, well, can we? And I don't even know if we can. That was my response to him. I don't even know if legally we can. Where there, if you're looking at Niagara School, to the left-hand side is a gravel parking lot where most of the staff park. Put a sheltered area right there, which is kind of like a trailhead, and then pave a walking trail around the perimeter of Niagara School, and then make a loop to where you come back around. So you might be able to get, I think he said, like a half-mile walking trail. Well, when fiscal court put their survey out to the community, people started to obviously ask questions. And one of the bigger questions was, how will you maintain, how will you ensure the safety of the kids during the day? That was one of the bigger feedbacks, because people walking. And then the response was, well, it's up to the school. You don't have to have it open during school hours. It could only be open in evenings and on weekends. And so I bring that to you for you to be aware, but ultimately it's the board's decision as to whether or not we would enter into a collaborative agreement with fiscal court to put, when they say playground area, that they mean a shelter area, and then a walking trail goes around, makes a U-turn, and comes back around and ends at the same place as well.
So are we talking additional playground equipment? Are we talking about using Niagara's playground equipment as part of this park? Is there
Playground equipment really wasn't discussed.
Okay.
Possibly a basketball court would be installed by the county, but nothing about playground equipment
was mentioned. But now remember, Niagara's not gated, so after hours, people go there and use the equipment anyway. I mean, they do. I mean, they walk around the building now for walking exercise, because it's not gated, you can get on the property.
Have they done a survey and the community wants it near the school? Is that where that conversation started? Why did they do all of that? I mean, I know that's an option, but have they asked the community where they want this park?
They did.
Near
They,
the school is what they chose.
that was just one of the options. That was one of the options. Adding to Belfield was an option that the community liked, and having one down by the store was an option that they liked. I just felt like because it was public knowledge out in the Niagara area that fiscal court was starting to talk about this, that I wanted to make sure I informed you that those conversations were going on. And maybe at the next working session, maybe you, I don't know, I just feel like I need some guidance and some feedback. I don't even know if legally we can enter into agreement with them, so.
Before this meeting, Morgana did raise this question with me, and, you know, part of the issue is we don't know a lot of specifics, but, you know, my initial concerns were, we have kind of a closed campus due today. So we don't want to open up anything that invites the public onto school grounds when children are there. That creates a lot of gray area, you know, with what their requirements are. If they formally dedicate a park area, can they, when they're putting county funds and if they formally dedicate that, can you even do that on school property? Because they don't own it. And then, once they put it up, who's gonna maintain it? You know, when you look at our facilities use policy, you ask permission to hold events on the weekends or whatever. If you have a shelter, then you have people that, you know, it automatically invites more people onto school grounds. So then when somebody gets hurt, are they hurt on a school park? I mean, at a county park, or are they hurt on school grounds? And, you know, if there is a divot or something happens, there's a lot of blurred lines. And so that's kind of another stumbling block that I don't know that they're far enough down the road to really address all those. But, you know, it's not like, it didn't sound to me like it's something like the archery building when it was just handed over and given. When you talk about a county park, it seems a little bit different to me than just a gift to the school. So, and then if it is a gift, then is it even one that fits in with what we want the site to be used as? That's another issue. Sometimes there's gifts that actually can do more harm than good. So there's just a lot of unknown.
How much property do we own by the school? Is there, no, not, if I take it away property because it takes us so long and so hard to get a hold of it, but if we didn't own the property, Ms. Beth, would it change some of those questions? If we gave that piece of that property to.
Well, we can't give it to them.
You can't give it to
No,
them.
we can't give them it. We can't give it to them.
Okay.
We could, I mean, I would doubt that we have enough property there that we could sell off a portion of it. But, I mean, it would have. Yeah, I mean,
There's not enough of it there.
right, and we can't donate to the county. It would have to be sold at fair market value, and I don't think they're interested in that. So, yeah, I mean, if they built something right next door to the school that's not on school property, that's not, you know, our concern. It's the fact that they're wanting to build it on school property.
I was going back to, there was a piece of ground in Roberts that was landlocked at one time that we deeded over to the county. Maybe there was money involved in that to put a park together. It was going to be in the middle, or close to a park, and they were expanding it. We couldn't do anything with it because it was landlocked. That's where my thought process came from.
Right, and I know what you're talking about vaguely, remember part of that,
Okay, never mind.
but it would be a matter of declaring the property surplus and putting it out for sale. I mean, it was a process.
Board members, what are you all, what's your thoughts?
I appreciate the information. I just tell county court, when they come up with something a little more positive, we'll talk. Right now, they need to be looking at other places. That's what I tell them.
Ms. Tracy, you have a thought?
My first thought is that I would want people walking around our school while we're in school. As our closed policy, that's just not something, a basketball court. You know, kids are testing right there in that classroom and they're watching adults or older people playing basketball, and that's a distraction, and no, I don't like that idea either.
Dr. Slade?
I like the collaboration, but I have all those same concerns, liability being one of the biggest, and everything else that's been mentioned.
Yeah. Mr. West?
Same, mainly safety concerns for the kids.
I have to say, all the same concerns of that. I do applaud the county coming to us and asking us to work together to try to get something for the betterment of our community. And because on the flip side, we ask our community and our county court for a lot of things for our schools and for our kids. So it can't just be one way. We have to, it's give and take. Now, I don't want to sacrifice the safety of our kids, but at the same time, I want to be able to help the county. They're trying to provide something for our families because we ask the court to help us provide stuff for our families. So we need to, I think it's a good thing to act on. Okay, so this is an ongoing discussion. Yes, Ms. Morgan? Sure. Okay. That's right, that's cool. Okay, moving on to calendar revision. Mr. Steve?
Yes, ma'am. We inadvertently put 176 days in our school calendar, and we have not sent that to KDE yet. We'd like to get that out early for our parents to be able to make some decisions on vacations and know when things will start and when end. But as we talked about earlier, Human Resources was making up contracts and noticed that we had 176 days. So my request is that we remove the last day of school, which would have been May the 18th, and make the last day of school May the 17th. And that gives us 175 days, which allows us to continue with our bank days, and our contract will all stay the same at that point. Added benefit as well is for those of you in secondary land and know a little bit more about secondary, it allows for graduation, in theory, to happen on a different day other than the last day of school, which is extremely helpful for that group. So that's what our presentation is, to remove the last day, May the 18th, and make it May the 17th, which gets us to where we need to be.
Off on a similar subject, the law that was passed in Congress or to the legislature last time about getting a group together to work on the calendar will not affect the 17-18 calendar, is that correct?
No, that'll start this. Yes, ma'am.
Is that correct? Okay. Any questions, board members, besides that one? Okay, hearing none, I look for a motion to approve calendar revision as stated by Mr. Steiner.
So moved.
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Tracy. Thank you, Mr. White. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Madam Chair, I feel that I need to make a comment about school calendar, not anything that Mr. Steiner has presented to you. Calendar looks great. On August 21st, there is a phenomenal event that's going to happen in Western Kentucky, and that is that we are going to have a total solar eclipse. Okay, and many Western Kentucky school districts have already closed. They just revised their calendar and marked that day off because they are in the direct path where it will be over a 2-minute total blockout. Okay, like we have, Henderson County is not in that pathway. Madisonville is. Hopkins County is, so that's how close it is. Madisonville's having a whole town festival. It's a big thing. Nassau is coming to Western Kentucky. We have been involved in conference calls from Nassau about this. It's a big thing. At this time, because Henderson County is not directly in the path, Ms. Swanson has been working with our science committee to put several science activities together on that day. And so right now, we're not asking to close or anything like that. We prefer to stay in school that day. If students wanted to travel with a parent, we could give them an educational enhancement opportunity on that particular day. But to hold school regular session and just kind of, make it a big science day, big focus. And so I just wanted to make sure you were aware the buzz in Western Kentucky is big, where that pathway is, and just want everybody to be aware of that.
Any questions or comments? Like you're ready for ear to ear, what?
I'm gonna be dancing out there that day. I've figured out how to do something that ought to be fun.
It'll be fine. I can't see stopping our kids from going to school for the
I
whole
don't
day.
need to see the reason why they can't go to school.
I can't hear our parents say we can stop school because of 2 minutes anyway.
I'll share some challenges we could encounter. I'll be, you can always throw the cards on the table. We have people who work in our school system that love science, and if they'll want to drive an hour to see total solar eclipse, subs could become challenging for us. And then just depending on, attendance. But I think we can do attendance with EHO type of thing. So, and try and encourage our science folks that we need them there to teach science. But it's been interesting conversations in the West Kentucky Co-op with superintendents. You cannot find a hotel room around the lake area.
We still had school when I was in Browning, said we were gonna have an earthquake too. Yes, we did.
And it may be cloudy that day, so.
Right, Mr.
We hope not.
But we have water and flashlights in the closet.
That's right.
It could be cloudy that
Yeah,
day.
we have water,
But-
Other districts cancel school.
Oh, most
Remember
all of
Bob?
Western Kentucky are back in.
Like that went up to the strangest conversation we've had here for a while. Okay, moving on to code of conduct.
Yes, ma'am. We have submitted for your review 88 pages, student code of conduct for the 17-18 school year. The only revision that we made, besides some spelling revisions, was the personnel that was on the committee, and then also the drug screening process, which includes around 6-7 pages, and it's just policy. The updated calendar is in there. I was assuming that you would approve that, so it's in there as well. But everything else is the same as it's done. As our group met technology-wise through a group meeting through technology, and then when we got together, one of the things that we came up with is we've been pretty progressive on watching and seeing what trends are out there, and been ahead of a lot of issues through our code of conduct, and that kind of led us to be where we're at this point. So we're pretty pleased with what we have, and we ask you guys to approve that for this next year.
Any questions, board members, about the current code of conduct? I'll make a motion that we approve the code of conduct as listed. Do I hear a second? Thank you, Dr. Sugg. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Next on the agenda is the standard form of agreement between owner and architect. Also, Mr. Steve?
Yes, ma'am. The board worked with us to create about 10 projects that we can get started on as soon as they went through the process, BG1 process. And Craig Thomas and RBS have worked with us to create those BG1s along with Joe Nance and some other folks. They've gotten to KDE. KDE has approved them real quickly. And then the next wave was a hold off on some other things. We got that taken care of, and everything is back and in order. What we need to do tonight is to approve the contract for us to work with RBS and to continue our work with them. Two places. One is the A.B. Chandler Elementary chiller replacement. That's our main issue there. And then the other is East Heights, a partial roof repair and also partial asphalt replacement. Those two places, and they'll require a architect to work with us, and RBS and Craig Thomas have been working with us on that to this point. So we need to continue that work and approve those contracts, if you will.
Any questions of Mr. Steiner or Craig as they give it back regarding that? Hearing none, I look for a motion to.
I have one comment.
Oh, yes, sir.
With regards to the chiller at Chandler.
Yes, sir.
What are the most prevalent type chillers we have in the system? Are they train or?
They're trained. Yes, sir.
I would think that we could get on the architect's agreement or the bid for the various providers, that there would be something in the bid that indicated that we would be supplied with a train chiller, or what the cost might be without a train or with a train, because even though they may come up with a low bid, we would have to buy additional type of replacement parts, stock them in inventory for breakdowns or something. So there needs to be some consistency in this bid if we could kind of make the bid. Yes, sir.
What we typically have been doing, because the Department of Education will not allow us to bid just one manufacturer.
Yes.
We do a base bid and we come back and do an add or deduct alternate for manufacturer XYZ. So we'd be more glad to do that and make sure that we have a bid for train so that you all can evaluate it when the bids are in.
Thank you. Is that all right?
Good. Any other questions regarding that? Okay, I'll look for a motion to approve the agreement between owner and architect for the two sites.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Tracy. I'll second that. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Steve. Thank you, Mr. Craig. Moving on to consent agenda. 10 items. Retiree resolutions, bid list, school activity fund budgets, school fundraisers, overnight trip request, auditor's contract, bid recommendations, memorandum of agreement between Henderson County Schools and Henderson Community College, grant applications, and textbook surplus. Any of those items need to be pulled or discussed? Hearing none, I'll look for a motion to approve the consent agenda items as listed.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I'm glad you did that. I didn't say it anymore. I'll second that. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you all. Financial report. Back to Ms. Cindy.
Okay, the treasurer's report for the month of April includes total receipts of $4,552,924 and total expenses of $5,491,853 for a net change, a decrease in all funds of $938,929, which again is pretty typical for this time of year. Any questions on that?
Madam Chair, members of the board, I request your approval for the treasurer's report as presented us tonight by Cindy Cloutier.
I look for a motion to approve the treasurer's report as listed.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mike. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Sutton. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Also, paid warrant report, Ms. Cindy.
The paid warrant report covers the period of April the 18th through May the 15th. I'll point out just a couple of payments. Danco Construction for work at Spotsville, $304,080.43. Gordon Food Service for $152,198.72. Home Oil and Gas for diesel fuel, $59,123.90. 9 construction for more Spotsville work, $42,088.24. Modern Supply Company, for some welders for the CTE unit instructional that was paid from the locally operated funds, $28,564.26. And Codell Construction for the contracting services, $25,325. Total paid warrants for this period, $3,390,875.18. Any questions on the paid warrant?
Madam Chair and members of the board, I request your approval of the paid warrant reports as presented tonight by Cindy Cloutier.
I'll look for a motion to approve the paid warrant report.
I'll make a motion, we pay the bills.
Thank you, Mr. Mike. Oh, second by Ms. Tracy. For a moment tonight. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Personnel actions, let it be known that we have received a list of personnel actions and review. And item number 12, I believe is yours,
I'll
Mike.
make that motion, Madam Chair.
Time, stop.
I wanted to ask a question about the
Yes, ma'am.
personnel. The
Oh, I'm sorry.
non-renewals, are some of those based on waiting for Title I and those funds to come in? Or, in other words, are we looking at,
It's a combination.
okay,
Some are funding, some are principal chose to not renew performance, and some are staffing, but only few are staffing, formula staffing.
And Ms. Bayer,
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to acknowledge that we have a fifth board member tonight.
Oh, yes,
We have a
I'm glad you reminded me. I have a note here.
board member.
Big warm welcome to Mr. Wes Smith. We're glad to have you.
Thank you, Aaron Schmidt, for being here.
Thank you, Aaron Schmidt, yes.
Told him it's been very lonely down here. Welcome aboard.
Okay, anyone else before I give Mike the go-ahead?
I'll make a motion, we adjourn the meeting.
Whether he gets to go ahead or not, he doesn't. I second that. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you all.
Yes.